Hello, welcome to another weekly news about Azure on Azure Centric. My name is Marcos Nogueira. With me, I have Andrew Lowes, the dream team, right?
It's our dream team.
It's our dream team, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's been an awesome week. I see that you guys like our last podcast, and because of that, thank you so much. It humbles me a lot, and I think Andrew as well will agree with me that the success that you guys making this podcast, we just provide our passion, we provide our knowledge and everything regarding our experience on Azure to these news, to these updates. We are not here to announce anything. Microsoft already did it, and they have their mechanisms to do it. We are only here to just comment those updates and make that as a bridge between what is they announce and how they can impact your organization. So as you can imagine, today we have a smaller podcast, or at least that's the goal.
Absolutely, yeah. I was really impressed. We had lots of kind of involvement on last week's podcast.
Yes.
And it was really big, a little bit big, yeah. So this week is a lot more manageable, which is nice because then we get to kind of think about some of these releases a little bit more deeply, right?
Yeah.
We can actually talk about them.
Exactly, and we can give a little bit more in depth of our experience regarding those, because weeks like or podcasts like last week, it was really excited for us with all of those plus 40 new updates, but it's not reasonable for us to just going on depth in this case on those topics.
Exactly.
And that's the part that I like a little bit less, so we can provide a little bit more insight about those, and that's the part that I like. So this week we have not a big podcast, or at least is not expecting that. Let's see how it goes with conversation. So once again, thank you for listening. If you don't subscribe, help us grow a little bit more, help us share the content. So if you like this, give a thumbs up. Just leave a comment below if you want to address any of those topics. We've been receiving a few podcasts, a lot of the comments like saying, wow, I didn't expect that Azure was growing that fast, and all of those comments. We are addressing the comments as we can, because we got a lot of comments, good comments about that, and interesting ones. But if you have any question, or if you want to see any podcasts about that, we have some surprises coming up for even on end of this year and the new year. So stay tuned. And to stay tuned, just click on the bell, and then you can see all the updates that we are releasing.
Yep. That's important to get those notifications, because we
Exactly.
have something tied to that coming up.
Yeah,
And it'll be fun.
it will be fun.
So I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, exactly. We shouldn't.
It's Christmas. We can't spoil the surprise.
Exactly.
Santa would be very disappointed. We just can't do that.
We can't. But that's okay. Another thing that I want to announce that you probably didn't see it, just go to the YouTube channel. For example, if you are listening this through your podcast to your device or on your car, I don't think it's appropriate right now with all of this COVID. But if you are listening in wherever you want to listen to us, just go to the YouTube channel. I release I start to release those concept series, talking about a little bit more depth about some of the concepts. And the idea is just go depth on those concepts. I starting to do that. I got emails saying, yeah, please keep going. And I might do 1 or 2 tutorials just to see if you guys like it. I know that Azure Tracks does a lot of good tutorials. It was one of the things that I like about that, especially on the one that I did see and I highly recommend is regarding the invoicing and the billing. Very interesting. I'm not here to copy anything that Azure Track does, but it's just complementing each other, right?
Absolutely. Actually, and that was a fun one I did because we do get a lot of questions when we're on client sites or just talking with clients about invoicing. Why is this invoice so tough to understand? Why are these codes in Egyptian when I'm in Canada?
Egyptian is awesome.
Well, Microsoft works really hard, and sometimes they substitute a hieroglyphics font instead of, sans serif or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that said, I'm really looking forward to some more of your concepts and your fundamentals walkthroughs because. As our listeners may have picked up on, you were part of, a good ignition for me. You really got me interested in a lot of Azure things, and you, I think, will rub off on a lot of other people who are either just getting into the IT industry or maybe they've become a little bit, I don't know what the word is, stale. And it's where I think of I was. That's why I used that word stale. Because sometimes we get stuck and it's hard to be able to kind of see what can I do that's more fun? And as you know, I think like you said last week, our last episode was maybe the most joking episode that we had. We were always laughing about something.
Yes.
But why not have fun? We can work, we can do the podcast, and we can have fun doing it. And we can have fun doing all of these things with Microsoft Cloud and Azure computing.
Absolutely.
And, I think with that, thank you, of course, to all of our listeners and everybody kind of tuning in. Check out Azure Centric. Marcos does an amazing job of sharing his knowledge, so please check him out and definitely click for the notifications because his videos are pretty cool.
Yeah.
That said, you have something that we should talk about, I think, right?
Yeah, let's start our podcast, basically. So Event Hubs on Azure Stack is now GA. So this is pretty cool. I like always, and we were talking before, just starting this podcast about IoT and all of that. And this is very tied to that. It's the IoT Hub that is on Azure Stack and allows, in this case, the what Satya mentioned of the Azure, in this case, the intelligent edge to be able to do it. So Event Hubs is the way that you can stream your information through that. Usually it was able only to stream through the cloud, and now you can do it on-prem through the Azure Stack Hub, right? And then connect that to other ones, because what's the importance over here is if you have a peripheral of devices, if you want to use Event Hubs, for example, for Streamline, you need to connect one device to Azure. It's like one-to-one. Over here, to centralize everything, it's probably simpler to just connect that device to this this Azure Stack Hub, and from there, connecting directly. So it increases a little bit the performance, it increases a little bit the security as well, because now you don't need that device, you don't need to be too much cautious of having that device connecting directly to the internet, right?
It's far superior, I think, because now it doesn't have to, like you said, go out over internet. We can transit over the VPN connection or through what's the thing I'm trying to think of, Marcos? ExpressRoute.
Yes.
Right. So we can go direct into our Azure tenant instead of out through public access.
Yeah.
So way more secure, but also a lot more flexible.
It is flexible. There are lots of things that you can do it with Event Hubs now that they are that you can have it on-prem. So you can do that, and just basically when you connect into the cloud, they already kind of being streamed So they have some kind of processes on the edge, like Satya says, the intelligent edge that you can have it, because we're starting to see that it's a lot of information that you are pushing out, and by doing that, you have a lot of telemetry that you can have directly response over there on site. It's way faster than allows you to go to the cloud and come back. And then you have like costs associated with that, bandwidth, and all of that. So it's a good way that Azure Stack, in this case Azure Stack Hub, is now having one more service that makes totally sense for the IoT world.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have kind of an IoT or an edge focus almost this week. I noticed a bit of a theme.
Yes, yes.
So last week we had just everything.
Yeah, basically the entire Azure decides to let's make those two fellas talk a lot.
Well, I think it was more like, let's get something done in December so then we can take the rest of the month off, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Which, hey, I mean, I'd jump on that ship if it was around too.
True. And if you know Microsoft, the fiscal year is July, June, right? Mm-hmm. And December is right in the middle. Is when they switch over to the second semester. And so ends a lot of things. Ends the quarter, the second quarter. Ends the semester. They are beginning the new semester, beginning the new year, beginning the new quarter. The third quarter, in this case, the FY21, right? And that they have right now. So a lot of things we didn't expect, because we know that sometimes they push a lot of things. But it was a nice surprise. This one right now, talking about IoT and continuing our path on that, IoT Azure IoT Central. This is update that is a little bit strange, but it's November 2020 update, although they release it in December.
Exactly. So it's interesting because I remember it was last week or the week before.
Yeah.
We saw the October 2020 update released into GA.
Yeah.
So that was still, I think, end of November, start of December. So now we're seeing November kind of playing a bit of catch up. But this is usually behind. That's really normal, right?
Yeah. The part that I like about these updates, they are basically two things that I want to highlight. One of them is, if you are familiar with IoT Central, and if you're playing along, and if you have those boards that you can have, that you can even buy, the Azure Sphere or the older boards, right? I
thought I might have one.
I have one. I don't know where it is mine. That I'm playing a lot with that. If you are familiar with that, now IoT Central is support what's called the IoT plug and play. So you can have different devices that they are certified. You just just plug them, and automatically you can play with them. One of them is the boards that we got. I think I bring one to you or a few to you, right? The other one is the Azure Sphere one that you can do a little bit more. They have some sensors that you can work with. The other highlight that I want to bring on this is now, because of the peripheral of all of these devices, and persons like me, for example, that they are testing, they are not leveraging production devices, we only send a few messages. And usually the tier that they have, it was the tier 1, right? On the Azure Central, and you were included the 5,000 message, but I never reached the 5,000 message that I'm sending. So right now they reduce that. They create what's called the ST0 tier, that is basically $1 per device per year. Fair enough, I can pay that without any problem, just to play around.
Well, that's pretty good, but imagine if you're like an elevator company and you're using all these IoT sensors for different things, right? So you have perhaps hundreds of sensors. A couple of $100, in corporate invoicing land is not going to break the bank, I would imagine. However, it's good to be aware of it because there's plenty of users out there, corporations and organizations that are definitely what we refer to as at scale.
Yeah.
So it could impact them a little bit.
And there is some device that this doesn't even go on that path. So, for example, the example that he mentioned on this update was, for example, the scenarios of fleet management. So exactly. Those ones you are not constantly sending like a factory that you are constantly sending information, right? It's basically like, oh, we had the Delta over here, send the message. Oh, everything it's okay. So we don't need to send a message in this case. And if you have lower messages, right, it makes totally sense to not paying for that. 5,000, yeah, probably makes sense for those manufacturing devices that you have on your floor plant, right? And that's a very interesting, with a few updates we're talking about when we talk about Azure Digital Twins, that you can have all of those smart appliances, like for example the fridge, that it's like basically putting like, oh, you are below temperature, or something like that just sends a few message. You don't need to pay the tier 1 that is the minimum, right?
So I worry about smart fridges, to be honest, because I don't like my personal data kind of in third-party hands a whole lot. I like to stick things either within Microsoft or within Google, kind of keep it in the first-party ownership. And what concerns me about that is I do need reminders for when I'm out of milk or strawberries, because my smoothies, they just don't taste right when it's only a banana.
But I thought that your device was your wife.
Well, she just keeps me in line in general, absolutely. But
because
you are right though, because a lot of devices like the smart fridges, they're going to send maybe a couple messages a week.
Yeah.
You're not going to hit 5,000 a year. Maybe if you're using it in a corporate, like a restaurant kitchen implementation, then you'll have a bigger impact. But,
yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting, right? So I really liked the IoT plug and play for Azure IoT Central. I think that's actually kind of, again, it's a small little announcement that they sneak in with a one sentence, but it's a big impact, right? Because now we don't have to do the join operation and point it. It's plug and play.
It absolutely. And that's the part that I like about that is that plug and play, right? So moving on to another one, and this one, it's kind of interesting, is now we have a new series, the HBv2-series, for the high performance computing, now available with our friends at UAE.
Absolutely.
United
Arab
Emirates. Yes, thank you. On North region. So, and this is good because we've been talking a lot about the evolution of Azure, the evolution of data centers regarding this, and now they are able to have all of these series of virtual machines now on that region. So we're talking about, just to give a recap, talking about the AMD, in this case, virtual machines. Okay. That another day I was looking, if you are a gaming, or if you like games computer and high performance personal computer, they say that there is a lot of criticism regarding Intel and around Intel, that they are not growing, especially on the PCI 3.44 that they are doing, and they are not evolving much. Apparently they have some problems with their processors, and Skylake, it's being good, but the new version, it's not being as stable as possible. And AMD just catch a train.
Well, we don't want to pick on Intel too much because they've given us a lot over the years for sure. But
no, I have everything Intel on me. I'm not saying I'm not picking up. I'm just using this.
The reason
because it was a surprise for me, right?
You see, I'm qualifying it because the reason I say I don't want to pick on them is that I'm going to pick on them. So Intel, like you said, they've had some problems with the Skylake architecture, right? But remember, they've had a couple of core code level compromises over the last couple of years, and it's been difficult for them. Microsoft has had to partner with them, and Windows OS has put patches to mitigate some of those processor level threats with the processor code. And there is no fix for at least one that I can think of off the top of my head. It could be different, it could be patched by now. I haven't seen a big release from Intel for it though, but I think, as you know, if you have a situation where you have a piece of hardware like a processor and you have the firmware like the processor code, when you can't patch it as a company, the news releases really kind of run wild with it, and it damages reputation.
Yes.
It's difficult. And that's why I say I don't want to pick on Intel, because I don't want to jump on that pile. That's not my intention. I just want to point out AMD has had faster recovery from their issues, because we all have issues. We find different vulnerabilities as time goes on in systems, hardware, software, all of these things. The key is how fast can it be patched and keep the evolution moving ahead, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, AMD has come out on top right now. And I think this one was cool because this HBv2 series, it talked about the virtual machines having 340 gigs per second of memory bandwidth. And it's 66% higher than the other x86 CPU alternatives. So the other alternatives, as in available in the Azure data center. So this one has how many cores can you have in this one? I didn't see that. I did see it can have 480 gigs of RAM, and it has 480 meg of L3 cache.
If I'm not mistaken, it's 120. If I'm not mistaken.
Is it 120? Okay. I see there. Yeah, you're right. The article does mention 120 AMD EPYC, and then the series CPU cores.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of cores, and that's a lot of RAM.
Oh yeah. It's going to be useful if you want to play Minecraft, for example. That requires a lot of compute, a lot of RAM, right? Or even
Minecraft is more cool than people think, right? It's not just for young whippersnappers, right? It's for guys like us and girls and everybody, right?
It's for everyone.
Absolutely. It's really cool. Yeah. And I know Microsoft has a really cool learn to code program that they sponsor for geared at children, but using Minecraft as the playground for it, really.
It's not only for learning code. I found that if you're going on the Minecraft education, you have about engineering, you have about science, you have about a lot of things.
Vastly. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And that's the part that I like. Probably we should do like an Azure on Minecraft.
I say let's do it. Let's do a special Minecraft episode. I'll get my son on, who's an avid Minecraft fan.
Should we get our sons in this case to talk about Azure or Minecraft on Azure?
Maybe we give the kids an episode. I think that's a cool idea. I know both of our sons are pretty into Minecraft, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So moving on, private link support for Azure Automation. It's not GA. So it comes to our heart, automation, right? And again, private link, it's already been there for a few months already. They announced that a lot of I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. And now we're starting to see almost every episode of this podcast, we're saying that now private link supports this. Last week was regarding, if I'm not mistaken, regarding SQL. Now it's Azure Automation. So we're starting to see that private link. So private link, if you are here for the first time, is nothing more than the way that you can secure your virtual network or access to the services, the public services that Azure have through your private link. In this case, through either your VPN, express routes, be able not to going from outside. because there are a lot of services that they are public, right? And all of those services usually they can come. You can go to the internet to access those. So, for example, one of them is one of my favorite features of Azure. That is ASR, or Azure Site Recovery, and that is a public service. So by public service, I don't need any virtual or VPN from on-prem to go to Azure to have anything. But if I want to have private link for example, Azure SQL database, now I can only reach from my internal network. And that's pretty cool to have automation. So they mentioned something that I don't know if you already test this, but I didn't. It's one of the things I want to try to test is with DSC. I have a lot of customers that they are using DSC, that is PowerShell Desired State Configuration, that basically it just grabs the configuration, especially on new VMs, on new workloads that you have, and now you can do it internally, right?
Yeah, so I have not tested this specifically, but based on the description here, it's going to work really well. Because with private link, of course, it gives that private IP on your private customer VNet.
Yeah.
And if you have a DNS mapping for the UPN, then away you go. Because now DSC can pull it, and even if your IP changes, no problem, right? But it's all internal now. So you can really link together a lot of automation activities that we used to have kind of segmented within the Azure space, right?
Yeah.
And it's bringing things closer together and making them more in reach.
Yeah, because Azure Automation, I don't know if you are familiar or not, but it's not only for Azure World. You can do Azure Automation on-prem as well on what's called the hybrid. So, and that's the part that is interesting, because if you have something inside, right, that you are running what's called the agent, or in this case on the hybrid part of it of Azure Automation, now you don't need to go through the public one. You need to go internally. So you don't need to open kind of more doors or more firewalls. So our friends of the security will be very happy with this update. Because now you don't need to go outside. You can go just internally, just using your VNet, your express route, anything that you are using to just connecting the both worlds, right? And that's the beauty of it. And that's the part that I found interesting while I was reading this and I was looking a little bit more in depth, is even if you are on Azure and if you have 100% on Azure, right? With the private link, you don't need to go outside to come back again.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is kind of all, I think you remember this article that was a two-parter. It was a little on the big side and really big, right? It was a huge announcement about keeping routing with ISPs internal, doing everything they can. So one of the key points in this article is keeping all traffic inside Microsoft Azure backbone network.
Yeah.
And this, again, just continuous steps of improvement. It's really a full CI model across the whole thing. The whole of Azure is a one big continuous improvement model. And that's what these incremental changes are. So, I'm going to stay away from the theories. I keep thinking about Kanban, but let's stay out of manufacturing today.
Why is that? Why?
Because little changes make big results, Marcos. That's why.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely about that, my friend. Absolutely. So this news or this update, it's a nice one. So Google recently announced that starting in the next year, they will embed the WebView support. In this case, will be depreciated. So it means that it goes away.
Yep.
So what does that mean for us that we are working with Azure? And in this case, what this announcement by Google will affect us, Andrew?
Well, yeah, so this is kind of tucked away, but it's definitely a big identity thing, right? So
Exactly.
if you're a B2B collaboration customer and you're using a Google account to authenticate in Azure Active Directory, it's going to stop working if you're using the WebView sign-in. So you're going to have to use a different type. There's lots of options. I suggest you go into the article, read the documentation, and figure it out for your customer needs, your operations needs. And every business is going to be different, which is why I'm kind of generalizing and I'm steering away from a recommendation here, because it's going to be very personalized, has to be customized for each organization for how they move forward from this. But it's, I think they've made, I've only seen actually one other announcement about this coming up, maybe a few months ago. And it predated our podcast being a weekly thing. So this one's kind of coming out of the blue a little bit, and it's a short notice. So it is important that if you have B2B integrations with Google sign-on, that you take a look at it because it's coming up January 4. So you have, according to my calendar, I think two and a half weeks to get that sorted. So there are paths out of it, and certainly guest invites is a good way to kind of help deal with that and get them to use a different sign-on method. But yes, so it's important to know business impact is going to be interesting to see as we come through the start of January with this one.
Yeah, and the interesting part of this is they announce with a very little window, right? Like 2 or 3 weeks before.
Exactly.
And
so I think there was an announcement like a long time ago, but it was like the same kind of thing. It was like, hey, here's a heads up. And then all of a sudden, again, now it's kind of 2.5 weeks out, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is in it's a telling of the relationship between Google and Microsoft. They partner for a lot of things, but they're competitors, guys. So they're not going to always play super friendly, and they're not going to help each other to a whole heap. But again, at least we get a little bit of notice. It's not like next week or something right at Christmas. We do have New Year's Eve to get this one sorted.
Yeah, but it's going to be, let's see, it's going to be problematic for this because talking about identity, talking about the way that authenticate. So arrives January 4th, or in this case January 5th, you are coming out of vacations and everything else, and everything that you're supposed to have working, now suddenly it doesn't stop working.
Exactly. So I'll make an invitation here. So if any of our listeners want to hear about some of the paths out of this to migrate away from the Google WebView sign-in support, we can throw together like a quick 10-15 minute where we go over what the options are, and we talk about maybe even how to do the changeover kind of at a high level, right? So we'll stop short of doing the actual consulting gig for you, but we will present the options so you know what to do. So if you need help with this, go to Azure Centric and comment on this. I think YouTube channel is a really good spot.
It is.
And then, let us know. And we'll put together a quick podcast. We can do that for you over the holidays.
Or if you want, you can scream for help. If you are close to us, we might hear. But the best way is just leave the comment below on the YouTube channel, or just tweet us or email us. We are very friendly. We don't bite. At least I don't. I don't know about Andrew.
Not hard. No.
Not hard. That's good.
I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody's gonna. Yeah, we'll have comments more about that one.
Exactly. Yes.
That's okay.
That's okay.
So you want to talk a little bit about API management's named values integration with Azure Key Vault.
Why not?
You're a big fan of Azure Key Vault.
I am. I am. And it's starting to see that is good, this, because now I can have name values. I don't need to just go there and to apply in this case, all of those things about Azure Key Vault, and especially if you are doing automation, this is your best friend, Azure Key Vault, because you just put there all your credentials, and from the scripts you just call it, and now you can have name values, so it will help us identify what we are calling.
Yeah, so I was talking with somebody this week, and they asked me, well, tell me about how you get a key from Key Vault, and I was actually caught off guard by the question, because you make the call and you get the key, and the policy defines if you're able to call it from what you are, where you are with your credentials. I'm thinking you get the key out of the Key Vault by calling it, and it returns the key for you, and then you use that for authentication usually. So I was confused by it, and I remember the fellow said, okay, well, yeah, it sounds like you know about it. And I'm thinking, well, I've used it. I sure hope I know about it.
Yes.
So it's interesting because it's easy to use. And that's, I think, the key, right? So you talk about automation. Remember last week we talked about that crazy list, and we had to validate it because I have a piece of automation running that gives us the list of Azure news. And it actually does use a Key Vault in my Azure tenant.
Yeah.
And I never even thought twice about it. It just, you put the credentials into Key Vault and then you call them, and it's so easy. So yes, go out, use it, use the things, but it's important to remember that one's in preview, right?
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that. The preview.
Yeah, we didn't give our high and mighty preview speech yet this week.
No, we were.
Marcos, tell me, I'm using something in my testing tenant for our little email that gives us lists of RSS feeds, but should I put that in my production tenant since I'm going to use these named values in my Azure Key Vault?
If it's in preview, you shouldn't, because then,
interesting.
Yeah, I think we covered that for the past, since the beginning of the podcast series. But here he goes again. Don't deploy things.
It's important. Again, this week I did see another client that had a preview feature in production.
Yeah.
And yes, they did sign up for a 10-minute get your coffee because Andrew's going to lecture you for a while.
Yes.
But
and
that's okay.
It's okay.
When it stops working.
At least we are not alone, right? We always get some of those nice emails phone calls and everything from our customers and from our. I don't call customers, I call friends, because they are my friends. And
absolutely right.
And so it's a way that you can communicate.
Features,
it is,
and they start using them, and they get excited about them, and that's what we want. We want to get everyone. We want to get you listening to us today excited about these new features coming out. So do use them. Just be aware when it's in preview.
Absolutely,
there's some rules.
They are.
I'll relax.
Okay. We should. It's weekend, so we should relax.
That's true.
So let's talk about expanding Azure. So now VMware. That's a very interesting one. So the Azure VMware Solution is available now on the region of UK South and East Japan, or Japan East.
Yeah, that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
I know, I can't say I have any Japanese clients, but I've definitely spoken with a few people in UK, and that's a big deal for that to become available in UK South.
Yeah, it is. And if you are not familiar with Azure VM Solution, it's basically, imagine that by the name, what they want to achieve with this is you can extend your VMware solution to Azure. But then you may ask, but I already listened to your podcast and you say that Azure is based on Hyper-V. Yes, it is. But this is the way that you can have VMware, as a host in this case for your virtual machines that you have to extend your solution to Azure, especially if you want to extend your VMware platform to the cloud.
Well, it gives more scalability,
Yeah,
right?
it does.
Because a lot of clients that use VMware, do have large clusters. And it's everything from kind of medium business to large enterprise. So, we talk a lot about scalability, and really what VMware means for Azure usage is you can scale it up really quickly.
Yeah.
So you have growth, you have unplanned growth or emergencies like this whole COVID pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of medical and research companies have been extending their reach into the cloud very rapidly and using a lot of Azure compute for research calculations and things. So it's really important that Microsoft partner with these companies, and they have, and they continue to grow those partnerships. But what it also means is when difficult times hit and things change, and I think of our Western natural resources sector, and they need to scale operations down a little bit, they can also do that because they have on-prem, they have cloud, and they have that true hybrid. So it's being inclusive of the VMware technology that's so extensively used in enterprise today, not just Hyper-V. Now, that said, of course, every time I go in at a new client site, I'm always looking about, explain why you're in VMware. And I hear a lot about long-term contracts and good salespeople. And that's great. It's a fantastic product.
Yes,
We use it all the time.
I use a lot. I use a lot.
Hyper-V has no additional licensing overhead.
No.
And it has almost the exact same feature sets. We just manage them differently, right? So.
Exactly. And these are Azure VMware Solution. It will help if they want to migrate as well to the cloud without re-architecting, without using any other tool that they are not familiar, especially, for example, if you are new at Azure, with Azure Site Recovery, that you need to deploy something to convert those VMs into Hyper-V, something like that.
And that's how we used to have to do it, right?
Yeah.
It was ASR.
Yes, with ASR. So this will allow them to just migrate without any cost, without the effort or risk of re-architecting the solution, and because if you move with ASR, you have a downtime. It's small, but you have a downtime.
There's also a bigger overhead with ASR.
Yes.
When you have VMware, because you have to have the standalone box, and then you have to have the agents and sync up your vCenter, and you have to do all the things.
Yeah.
Now that said, once it's up, it runs like butter. It's just amazing. It just works. But the setup is a little bit more. So when you when you use the partner relationship with VMware and Azure, it is less work and it's easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to more IoT stuff, Azure Digital Twins, it's now in GA. So now you can use in production.
Perfect, because when we were reviewing the articles for what we include, I said, Marcos, tell me more about digital twins, because I know a little bit about what they say in the news releases, but I haven't got to work with it. And it's kind of a big deal, right? So I'll ask it, Marcos, what is digital twins?
Good question, Andrew. So
yes, and I apologize to anybody who doesn't actually know both of us, because we goofball around a little bit like this all the time.
Yes, absolutely. But that's a very good question, because I think I've been mentioned these Azure Digital Twins for a few podcasts, and I always forgot that you that are listening to this, you might not understand what is, or have a clear picture of Azure Digital Twins. So I'm trying to be brief over here and not to kind of starting to dissertate about this, but basically Azure Digital Twins, you see, like, for example, the best scenario I can give you, it's a building, right? And on a building, even if you have your floor plans, or even if you have your AutoCAD 3D plans, it's just the building, right? Digital Twins is nothing more than Couplate that with your IoT world means that your sensors coming to life on your building. So now with the sensors, you can see, for example, where the elevator is, which floor it is. You can starting to see the temperature of certain elements of the elevator and a lot of those things. So it's basically bring those floor plans into a digital world that you can have, for example, with AutoCAD 3D, but associate that with IoT. So means that you're bringing those devices into life and you are placing those devices and the information that you are capturing for those devices into a floor plan. So now you can literally see what's going on. So it's been usually heavily used on manufacturings, on buildings, on stadiums, just to see a lot of those. Try to see a lot of those things, and cities especially. There is a very cool video about that. That they mentioned just to give an idea, but brings those building blocks into more reality. It's more like, I always like to associate this. I'm a huge movie fan. To the Minority Report. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. That he does. Sure. He does that.
My favorite part is when he has the interactive screen where he's bringing things in and out and up and down. And I thought that was really cool. And we're kind of a little bit on the edge of that now, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. So remember those cameras. The part that I want to bring is, remember those cameras that you have inside of the building, that when he enters, it just basically knows that is him, and he kind of give like the advertisement directly to him, say, hey, Marcos, welcome to the store again. Last time you were here, you were doing this. But now imagine not on that perspective. Imagine more on the perspective that you are managing the building and you can see the person going, okay, tracking inside of that 3D plan that you built on AutoCAD, for example, right? So that's the part that I like about digital twins. It's a it's a new world. It's a totally new world that's coming, and finally it's become GA.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you explained this for me, where the light really went on for me was, it's the convergence of multiple IoT things. So it's bringing together kind of that schematic, the drawing. Now that can be an engine. And by the way, if Microsoft is actually listening this deep into our podcast, cool. but
welcome.
A missed opportunity on the Digital Twins marketing page, because there's no buildings in there. You talk about engines and other things, but we didn't see any videos or any references for buildings. And that was kind of the simplest explanation to share with everyone, like you said, right? But it's bringing together that spatial area, the graph of it, the 3D drawing, and then the IoT sensors, but also putting the bodies in there, the people.
Yeah.
And I really like how you described it, because it is how humans interact with the IoT technology inside that drawing. Yeah. And that's really powerful. And I'm actually surprised I haven't seen that at a couple different clients that I deal with, because I think they would really benefit from that. And I'm going to actually go educate myself over the holidays. I'm going to learn more about digital twins, because I think that there's some people out there using Azure that may not know about digital twins, and it could represent a new area for them to become better at what they do.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, right? So moving on to the next update is one of them that is Python. Now with durable functions, support in Azure Function becomes GA. So Azure Functions becomes even more powerful with durable functions. In this case, with Python durable functions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. More flexibility. There's a lot of really smart Python programmers out there, And this is another way to make Azure Functions more powerful and more flexible for our automation needs.
Yeah.
And again, here we are talking about automation, right?
Yeah.
So more growth in that area. And I expect to see a lot more in the new year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Python, it's not my language of choice. It's good to know that they are increasing all of this, and you have way more ways to develop those Azure functions. And now this become GA, right? And I know that we didn't go deep enough, but it's
because we're not Python programmers.
Yes,
really.
Exactly. And I will never test this, to be very honest. And I apologize for you that you are listening. But yeah, I just want to bring that up. That's really the key of this is it's not only .NET and everything else. You can have way more things regarding Azure Functions, and that's the part that I want to bring. Moving on to the other one, and a little bit more with it's related to IoT, but it's not only to IoT as well, is now Microsoft increased the limit of the support reference data up to 5 gigs.
For Azure Stream Analytics,
Azure
right?
Stream Analytics,
that impacts Data Lake and SQL, I know for sure.
Yeah. And blob storage.
And it changes it from 300 megs to 5 gigs for the reference size.
Wow.
That's a really big change.
Big update, yeah.
Yeah, I would have expected maybe to see a 1 gig as a stepping stone. But this one's right into GA, right?
Yeah.
So this is available now in production.
Yeah. So you can literally start using this, and this is really good because now you don't need to get more, and now 5 gigs of Azure Stream Analytics allows you to do a lot of things that you were not allowed to do before, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So reference data size 300 meg is pretty limiting, especially when we think about data lake, even SQL really, and blob storage, I guess. But any queries that you're going to pull as a reference data, typically, the bigger, the more better. Yeah. And I think that's the third time I've said that today.
The bigger, more better. Okay.
Done. Exactly. Yeah, why not?
Why not? Exactly. So, good segue for the next one. It's a private preview, okay? This case, not private, sorry, public preview on Azure Stream Analytics that now they have additional support for managed identity, right? So cool to see that Azure Stream Analytics, they are moving forward with a lot of good stuff doing. Do you want to explore a little bit more, Andrew?
I'm actually kind of good on this one for the most part, mainly because it's still
preview.
In public preview. There we go. My goodness. And I don't know, putting public preview. I'm not really sure what was going on there, but it's going to support the managed identity model, right? So really, it just means that no matter how you're going in, if it's a managed identity, you can manage it as service-to-service credentials, and you're going to be able to access, many kinds. There's I think 4 or 5 definitions in there, and there are points in this news release. And I think for me, it was important to know that Event Hub's input and output was in there.
Yes.
Because typically you're going to use those service accounts with managed identities, right? And a lot of service accounts are going to touch data coming in and out of Event Hubs primarily, at least in my world. And I've been working a lot lately with Log Analytics Workspace, but Event Hubs are really freaking cool things.
Yes.
And you can process data right inside the VNet when the firewall is enabled for that. that's kind of a big deal because it's going to make it faster. It's less hop. You don't have to move the data over, right?
Yeah. And the part that I like about that is the part of the customer storage account as well. So because you have the storage account that it's supported with managed identity, and that's the part that, especially on Azure Stream Analytics, that you need some kind of way to pull that data from. Usually, a lot of times you use the storage account and all of that to just pull that data from, right?
Exactly.
Or to insert that data on, and now you can use it with managed entities.
Exactly. Yeah. And when we combine this with Private Link for the storage accounts that was out a couple of weeks ago, this now becomes all internal on your VNet,
Completely.
right? So there's no egress kind of going out and back into the subscription again, right?
Absolutely. So moving on to the one that's probably is going to be one of the cool ones is, at least for everyone that is listening, is like now we have 5 more free services that will be available on Azure free account. So what?
Yeah, for 12 months free.
It's for 12 months when you're signing, right? So the good thing about this is if you are listening to the podcast and you already reached this time at the podcast, when you open or when you create a free Azure account, you have, last time I checked it was $200, right?
Well, in Canadian, I think, yeah, it's like I think it's like 150 or to 200 Canadian.
It is, talking about Canadian dollars. They run the world, right? We run the world.
Well, when we go, we put these things on YouTube. Who knows? We could be talking about euros, right? So I just wanted to say Canadian. That's all.
Okay, fair enough. Point taken.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. You were telling us about Azure's early Christmas present.
So it's a Christmas all year in this case, right? Because
it's only a week away, Marcos. I'm sorry, I've got Santa on the brain.
I have no problem with that. I'm looking forward to see what's going on or what Santa going to bring me this year.
We have to talk about this after the podcast as well, because I do have a special Christmas sweater, and I think our next recording date falls awfully close to Christmas.
Yes.
And we need to talk about what we're going to wear.
Yeah. But don't spoil that for the next one. Okay. Talking about, let's go back to Azure Free. I think everyone wants to listen about this. It's like the Azure Free account is the account that when you go to the portal, you have that big button over there, say try now, and you can open an account, and you can open a subscription, and you have free. You have some amount, depending on where you are listening to us, some amount that is free that you can spend.
Is it nothing?
That you can spend on your first month, okay? But after that the month is gone, or if you spend everything on the first day, it depends on the way that you want to experience. You still can go. You can still go on with that account because you have 12 months of free service, right? And there are lots of free service. I highly recommend you to just going there and click on the link and just search it, because there are lots of free service that you can do it. So I know that you have a very small VM that you can run, especially if you are Linux and if you have a website. I know that, for example, if you want to host your I used to host my WordPress blog there. You can do it for free. For example, and those are the part of what's called the 12 months free services. Okay, when you sign up. Although what they are doing is they are adding 5 more services into this package. So Service Bus, VPNs gateways, that is huge for me. This is. I love that part.
Isn't that crazy? VPN gateway free for a year on your Azure account. That, to me, that's crazy.
It's crazy because now I used to pay for my VPN, and now it's free. And I have my lab connected to Azure, and now I can be whatever I want to have that continuously going on Azure without doing anything. Load balancers, of course, not all the load balancers, but load balancers.
But some of them, probably the entry level
Yes.
model for load balancer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Container registry and archive storage. Oh my God.
that was a big one. That one gets me excited. I'm a big supporter of tiered storage, hot, cold archive, right?
Yes.
So it saves us a lot of money overall when we're using files in the Azure storage space. It's important that we find those savings wherever they're hiding in our infrastructure, right?
Especially for us that we are technical, right? And we want to leverage. I have a lot of photos of my kids and photos of mine that I use as a cold storage. I have a NAS in my house that I want to access directly, right? But usually what I do is, if I want to just store those, I am archiving those on Azure. So what I'm going to see with this, and that's the part that I want to end this is all of this service is going to be free. So I will see a reduce of my billing regarding those free services, and that is awesome to see that.
So I did bring it up, and I want to say you get the Linux virtual machines free for 12 months. It's the B1S, and it's free for 12 months with 750 hours of burstable standard B1S instance.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal, because I know in my own testing tenants, I usually use, I think it's a DSV2, and that costs me like $3 a day or something to run that VM
Canadian.
when it's doing like Azure
$3 Canadian
or something. Yeah, in Canadian dollars too.
Because I have
very
someone
closely
that
related to the Canadian pesos. Yes.
Yes, for sure. So sadly, we arrive at the end of our podcast.
We have.
And it's been an amazing another week. A lot of good, awesome news about Azure. A lot of updates regarding that. So thank you so much for listening. Please do not forget to give a thumbs up. We really need your support. Subscribe the channel. Subscribe the podcast. Just put the ring if you are listening from the YouTube channel. If you are doing from the other podcasts, either SoundCloud, Spotify, Google, or Apple. Now it's so many that I have to count. Right.
So now you're on Apple Podcasts as well, right? You can find Azure Centric in iTunes, I think, right?
iTunes and on Google as well. And
that's awesome.
On Spotify and on SoundCloud. We are all over the world, my friend.
You're global, baby.
We are, yes, we are like Azure.
It's I've been really I know you said at the start, but I really have been very honored. I feel really special and humbled by all of the feedback and all of the likes and shares that we've been getting. And I think it's really cool. There's been a little bit of talk about our podcast, and it's our chance to give back to the Azure community. We've learned lots. We certainly we of course use Bing. We search the heck out of Azure things when we get in a bind, and there's lots of good articles from all of our cohorts in Azure across the world. So thank you so much. I just wanted to say thank you, because it's the Christmas season, and I'm feeling very grateful for all of these good things in my life, and I appreciate being able to share, not just with you, Marcos, but with the community as well. So thank you. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for listening. One of more episodes of Azure Centric, in this case the weekly Azure updates, and I hope that I can see you next week as well on the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like and to share with this. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast.